After days of media coverage centred on the Ipswich Mayor and his electoral donations, the state government has announced it will launch an official investigation. But a former electoral commissioner says the entire system of disclosing donations needs a radical change, labelling the current rules as pointless. And Bob Longland wants to put the information at everyone's fingertips. He joined me in the studio earlier today. Bob Longland, what needs to change with electoral laws?
Well, I think there's a big problem with duplication throughout the nation. It shows itself quite clearly in this area of political donations and disclosure. We've got a federal commission, 8 state and territory commissions, and probably 8 local government departments or equivalents, all trying to do the same sort of things for the different jurisdictions they operate in. That's, in this day and age, to me, is madness.
And so what's your idea there?
Well, I think there's room for a National Funding and Disclosure Commission or equivalent, where all these donations could be channelled. They could be recorded instantly when a candidate or a member of Parliament or a councillor receives a donation, and they'd be available on a public website for all of us to have a look at.
So 48 hours after a donation is made, you think it should be on a website?
I think so. I mean, in practical terms, 48 hours to me is achievable, but even if it were to be a week, as long as we're done quickly and there was no hiding behind the election date is coming up, we haven't got time to do that. This is vital for trust in our democracy.
Why? Why is it so vital? Why do we need to have this change?
Look, altogether too many donations come up from the deep, dark past that show that people have lost trust. These donations come from who knows where and for who knows why at a time when we're not allowed to see them. Sometimes it's a year or 4 years before we see them. That's just not good enough.
The explanation that's given for people who both donate and from the political candidates who receive them is always something like, well, they just want to support democracy. You're a former electoral commissioner. Do you buy that?
Look, I think there's every good reason for a country that's bounded on the rules of free speech for an individual to try to enhance their opportunities. But people don't give donations for no particular reason. The majority of us, day to day, we do it for altruistic reasons. We support the Cancer Council or World Vision or charities of our choice. But donations to political candidates and parties are of a different colour. There's an opportunity there for people to buy influence or access that the average citizen doesn't have. Now, I don't see there's anything wrong with donations. I think the answer here is in disclosure. And if we have full and open disclosure of the sources of all of these donations, then we're going to be better off.
The current system that applies to councils is that the candidates have to disclose their donations every 4 years, and that's only after the election's been run and won. Is there any value in that? Pointless.
There's no value at all, really, because if we don't know what's going on from one day to the next, if there's a relationship between a developer and a councillor that results in favourable treatment for a developer, well, we can detect that through the trail of donations. But we don't now have the opportunity to do that at all.
One of the other things that we noticed in the last few years, several years, is this pattern of candidates having their own private companies, their own private foundations and funds that almost seem to operate outside these disclosure rules.
Well, I don't think they're outside the rules. The rules actually are designed to capture those sorts of related transactions. The problem is the level of disclosure that comes from them. If you have a private foundation and it receives a donation from an individual or a company, then that's what should be disclosed, not the end result of the donation from the foundation back to your campaign.
Yeah, there seems to be also a trend where if they have a private company, then the donor can give to the private company, and then the person's own private company gives to themselves, in effect, gets around the laws.
I think in other spheres that's called money laundering, isn't
it? Could you stop that?
I think you could if you made the rules strong enough, if you made them uniform across the whole nation, so that individuals, candidates or parties or sitting MPs and councillors understood the requirements, then I think the vast majority of these people are honest. I don't see anything wrong with it, but disclosure has to be clear and open and accessible.
I saw a report that the New South Wales Corruption Watchdog ICAC, did in around 2010, 2011, saying that councils are quite highly vulnerable to corruption and often have fewer safeguards than state agencies. Is that the problem, that councils are very corruptible?
Well, I think they're closer to the ground, and most of those issues arise at a very local level. I think that this is also a reason why local government should be recognised in the Constitution. I mean, if it weren't for 1 week in September of last year, I'm sure that referendum would have been passed. Councils would have been recognised. They would get their due recognition and influence within the whole political sphere in the country.
Well, and then also the due regulation.
And the due regulation.
All right, Bob Longland, thanks very much for coming on 7:30 Queensland.
Thank you.